This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Welcome back to The Last Scare, a home for horror nerds to come together to talk about their favorite feel-good genre, and we are reunited, and it feels so good. I am Jayla.
I am Cam.
And we have Blake and Sabrina. They're back.
Hi.
We're all back.
It's been too long.
It's been a time.
I know. I've missed you guys. You had a little vacation. Well deserved, absolutely. But that means we have a lot to talk about.
Well, I've got a little bit of news. I don't know if anyone's heard, but Ted Raimi is producing and starring in a movie that is supposed to be pretty gnarly, pretty violent, and it is a one-take movie. It is a all shot in one take. It's like basically a 3-act play recorded.
So cool.
I'm so excited. I'm so happy to get more Raimi horror. I love that Ted is on his own adventure because, I mean, anytime we see him pop up, it's great. He was in a game recently. Oh my god, I love this game. I can't even think of the name right now. I'm on the spot.
The Quarry.
Thank you. He was in the Quarry, and he was great because he pops up. I'm like, don't trust that guy at all. He was super creepy.
I forgot to say, the movie is called Failure with an exclamation mark.
Failure!
Traitor!
Oh, jeez.
I don't even know what it's about. Like, you sent me the link. I saw the title, and I saw that picture of Ted, and I was like, I'm sold.
I need whoever's like in it just to scream failure like once.
I'm sure that'll be said a couple times.
Like all dramatic though.
So you guys watched We're All Going to the World's Fair recently.
Yes, first time.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that make you feel?
Man, it was one of those movies that it feels like it's a lot of setup and no payoff, which hurts to say. Just because the poster is really the only thing I've seen from the movie ahead of this. That like the black light and she's holding the eye, which I thought was really creative. And then you kind of just see how that unfolds, and it's kind of one of the only interesting things about it.
I can agree with that. It definitely feels like it's building up to a lot of something and doesn't really have any big climax to it.
Yeah.
It just kind of, the way it creeped me out was just by building tension and being unsettling throughout.
I mean, okay, there's like a weird like idea I had. Not that it's an idea, but like the idea they had in the movie could have been executed better. Because like it reminded me a lot of like the whole challenge, like the horror challenge that she was doing. It reminded me of like I remember a couple years ago, there's like a lot of those like going on the internet. Like that could have like I felt like that's where it was going, and then I was like, oh.
I don't blame you. I grew up in that era. For me, I remember staying up late at night watching those like creepypasta horror challenges, like the hide and seek by yourself, the elevator game. And also I grew up in a time where it was a digital age where I still felt this profound loneliness. And, I just really connected to that. I really connected to the main character, and it unsettled me, and I just really felt for her, and I just kind of, like, understood her, if that made sense.
Like, I felt like the concept, like, that I felt at first was that, like, they were trying to bring awareness to that, to, like, kids, who are young, and they're on the internet, and, like, can stumble across things that, like, they don't always understand. Like, kind of like what I was saying about, like, those challenges and stuff like that, and kind of, like, they don't know, but they want to be part of the trend because they're so lonely and stuff like that. But it's like that whole being so young on the internet and unsupervised kind of concept, and like
Yes.
the guy checking up on her, I was like, okay.
That final scene with him is why it didn't, like, I already wasn't with the movie, and the fact that it ended with him is what officially kind of turned me off of it. I hate that he told us how her story ended. Like, she met up with him. She's doing a lot better these days. I'm like, I don't want to hear that from you. I want to hear that from her. We've been following her this whole time.
See, I looked it up after, and they even said, like, they don't even know if that's true.
Yeah, if that's even true. It just seemed like such a...
like, something that, like, was, like, all in his head or something.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of him kind of hijacking her POV from this movie. Yeah, I also think it was expectations. Like I kind of went in thinking it was a full blown horror movie,
Yeah.
but it's
Like
not.
literally the way you described it, I was like, oh my god. I was like, okay, that
Hmm.
sounds good, and then it just didn't execute well.
Cam's a better storyteller than they were.
Yeah.
We knew this.
So like literally, like because I remember him telling us on the stream, and I was like, actually, you know what, we should watch that one day. And then like I was like, this is the movie Cam told us.
We watched it one day.
You
Oh
just
my
had to be
gosh.
there.
You know, and we're in an era where we have these slow burn horror movies. Like the trend is slow burn horror movies that go absolutely bonkers the last 15 minutes. So I don't blame you for being like, oh, okay.
Like so, I think by the end, it just didn't know what it was trying to be.
Clearly, we loved the movie.
10 out of 10 would recommend. Would watch again. I'm kidding. I'm literally kidding. Never.
It's okay because better things are on the horizon. We're rising up to better things, and it is time for Evil Dead fans. Blake and Sabrina, we were on the road to rise, and we haven't heard your thoughts yet. We've spent a year, an actual full-on year, talking about it. So this is time. I gotta know what you guys think about the movie. I'm really excited.
It was good. Like I will say that my thoughts on it have shifted over the past couple weeks.
There was like one thing you said to me after we saw it, and I was like, really? I was like, damn, that's disappointing.
Oh, I know it. I know what you're thinking of. I'll get there. We saw it a week after it came out, so we were behind you guys and everybody else. And then we finally saw it, and it was really good. But by the time that it ended, and I know Sabrina could tell in my face because she's like, "What'd you think?" And I was like, "I liked it. It was really good." And she was like, "Did you like it?" And then the more,
Oh, because like he was like, I think he was unsure himself. He was just like, yeah, I liked
yeah,
it.
I know it was good, but like where it stacks up to the rest of the Evil Dead movies is where I was very unsure. And finally, I have it in my last spot of the franchise, which might be a hot take, having Evil Dead Rise in last. Yes, I have the 2013 above it.
Oh,
Ow. This movie did a lot of did a lot of things right. The highlight probably being them all screaming "Dead by Dawn" in the hallway with her running towards the camera with the bloody nose.
I love
That is where the movie peaked. Was just that absurd balls to the wall horror aspect of it, which is what I love in Evil Dead. And I love the concept of having her just this literal monster for the final fight. She's merged together with all those other ones. It was really cool and unique for Evil Dead. But just everything leading up to it, I don't know. It might have been these characters because when they were getting picked off throughout the movie, I wasn't like, oh man, that person, which is I guess how we felt with kind of the first Evil Dead. Aside from Ash, he's the one person you really want to see live to the end, and I know I'm in the minority on that. I've seen a lot of praise for the all the supporting characters, but I don't know. Beth seemed to be the only one and the little girl. I forget her name.
Cassie.
I was rooting for Cassie.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really wanted them to survive, but I don't know. I think it was for the majority, not the entire time, but the majority of the movie, that Evil Dead spice just wasn't in the mix, and then it stood out in select scenes. So I don't know. Overall, 2 thumbs up, but the other Evil Deads still remain on top for me, at least for now.
see that I feel opposite about like when
I
you're like,
know.
oh, the
I know. I am in the minority on this one. I totally feel it.
well, like I obviously I came in like being afraid that I was like, it's like didn't really vibe with 2013, so I was like I really
That's why
want
this is a bigger twist that you liked it more than I did.
Oh, I know. I don't know how to fully describe it, but I think it's because it like, yeah, it was its own like like the darker part of like. I think it was like everything I wish 2013 was
Ooh.
for me at least, and like that's a huge hot take because I know a lot of people vibe with it, but I think it was just because it was like too dark, but I think in Rise it like balanced both of like what I love in all the other Evil Dead Rises.
I honestly think that's why I put it above Rise, is because at least the 2013 one embraced its own unique style. Like, sure, it didn't have pretty much any of that Evil Dead charm, but it just, the way it was shot, the way it was executed, and I liked Mia more than anybody in Evil Dead Rise, which I don't even know if that's a hot take, but I really like her.
Okay.
And Evil Dead Rise blends them both pretty well, but I think I just favor the 2013 one.
Okay.
for that. I know you strongly disagree with that.
I definitely still like Beth more than Mia, but I did like Mia. I still felt like it was like unique in its own movie because like it wasn't
Oh,
really,
for sure. I mean, it was finally set in not in a cabin.
like it wasn't like full on like slapstick like Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, but like it still had like some elements where I was like, okay, it doesn't have to 100% be exactly like that, but like I wanted like a little bit of that, and like I think that's why I vibed with this one more. Like I mean, like no matter what, I've accepted the conclusion that I'm never gonna like anything more than
An Evil Dead that has Ash.
yeah. That's just like because like that's what got me into it. So I was just like, okay, like as long as I can accept that,
Mm-hmm.
I can rate these better. Because like if I'm like I also don't want to sound biased, but I think I am when it comes to it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything wrong with preferring Evil Dead with Ash versus anything newer these days.
Those things that's like yeah, if you that's like what you vibed with, and like trying to care about someone else, it's like it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, and like that goes for any story. You know what I mean? Like any like kind of franchise like story where it's like, okay, you're caring about this one single hero character in numerous movies, and they're like, okay, here's a new hero, and you're like, okay, cool.
Especially considering that hero's story really hasn't been wrapped up yet.
Yeah.
So we're kind of left on a cliffhanger, and then we're meeting new people. So yeah, it's a mixed bag with that.
So a question we asked each other last week was, since this movie took it out of the cabin, took it into the city, but it's still sort of a confined space, what is your ideal setting for the next movie? If the next thing were another sort of standalone story, what sort of setting would you want it to take place in?
I hadn't thought of that until now, but something instantly came to my mind. I would love to see, because I love that that confined space. It would be cool to change it up and get something that's a little more open down the line. But I would really love to see, especially since I believe was it Lee Cronin or Sam Raimi? One of them said the movies going forward would all kind of follow different groups of people. Like we're not going to have like a new main character, like a new Ash to focus on through each one. And I like that idea. So it would be cool if the next one took place in like a prison and we got to know a group of prisoners in some cell block, and the Deadites kind of take over cell block by cell block. But we specifically follow one group of prisoners. It kind of like an Alcatraz kind of vibe. If anybody plays Call of Duty Zombies, Mob of the Dead is just kind of what I picture when it comes to this. And that is peak for like a horror movie setting, I think. I've played too many horror games that take place in a prison, and it terrifies me.
That'd be like a not like a risk, but that'd be like such an interesting concept. That's like, oh my god, a lot of people be like, I can't believe I didn't think of that.
It's kind of like, I almost want to say asylum, but I think that's just so played out when it comes to anything creepy or scary.
No, you've seen too much of that. When it comes to horror,
Yeah,
that's like the fundamentals of like fucking horror. In asylum, cult, shit
Yeah.
like it's like
sure, you see a lot of prisons too, but for Evil Dead, I feel like that's just something we really haven't even kind of crept into at all. Like even there was an episode of Ash vs. Evil Dead that took place in an asylum. So
Yeah, I thought of that immediately when you said that.
Oh man.
But she had the idea of doing a prison. That was
Really?
one of her ideas.
Yeah, that was one. Another go-to I had was a desolate resort, maybe a desolate ski resort. It's crumbling.
Ooh, Dead Island vibes.
Hasn't been kept up. It's end of season, so no one's around except for like some people that want a really cheap vacation, maybe other family. I don't know. One thing I liked about Rise was that it was a family. They established the dynamic, and I felt connected to them so quickly, and I felt like there was for me more gravity knowing that like this is a family, like this is like they're siblings and you're going through this, and I really like that. I love Evil Dead. It's fine if they're just friends, but I really do like the added concept of having a family going through this.
And that would be the exact opposite you get with something like Prison. We started with group of friends with Ash, and then family here, and then just imagine the group of characters are all enemies. Like they all kind of want each other, preying on each other's downfall.
Ooh,
So
have like a thing. Like,
that would be cool.
Like the thing going on, you don't know who to trust because the nights kind of like go back and forth sometimes. Yeah.
you can already like mostly trust people in jail because everyone.
There's already pre-established beef before Deadites get involved too.
A lot of tension, yeah.
The guards, that can play a factor too.
Okay, I need them to get on that like now.
Sam, I got another pitch. Come on.
Listen. You don't have to like pay us. It's just take it. Just take matters in your own hands.
Take my idea.
It'd be an honor.
Cam, what did you say?
I think I said like a beach where it's still
We
sort
did.
of open, but maybe like I think I said like on an island where they can't get away still, but it's more of an open setting. The thing that makes it work, whether it be the cabin or the high-rise apartment, is that they're trapped there because the bridge broke or the stairwell broke. Basically, whatever's keeping them in that.
There's rules.
There's rules.
There's rules to an Evil Dead movie, and part of those rules is once you speak the words, your escape is cut off.
What is it with the earthquake in Evil Dead Rise? That I feel like that couldn't just be coincidental, not just a spontaneous earthquake. I want to say that something evil caused the earthquake to open up the tomb and release the Naturum de Monte.
Yeah, I've debated about that actually, because like I do feel like one of my personal headcanons or theories, whatever you can call it, is like the book has some kind of like mind game where it attracts people to it. Because like normal people, like usually you see something like that, you're like, nah. But whoever is like kind of like synced in with it is like drawn to it. Is one of my personal theories.
Oh, speaking of that, little small detail, I love that they changed it from like a little cassette to like a vinyl.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Love
that was
that
that's a
great.
great idea.
I don't know, that's just so cool that like them updating it because it's a little more modern. I think that'd be a cool thing to kind of like update in every movie. Not saying you have to have an iPod, but you know what I mean.
Ironically, the first thing that you could record sound on is one of the most modern forms of an audio recording, just because of the vinyl resurgence. Because they had those records 100 years ago, but now people like us are actually listening to them.
They still make vinyls to this day. Like, they don't still make VHS tapes, right? That's been done for a long time.
I will not buy modern like re-released ones unless they're like modern artists. Like I will not buy like a Beatles one if it's like brand new. I will go to like a thrift store and like because I want to hear the crack and like how old it is. Like that's my favorite part of
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like I need to know that this album has been through shit because it's so old.
that's why I don't buy the Star Wars movies on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Just so many touch-ups. You lose that charm, that magic. And they had those scratches in Evil Dead Rise, like just that really grainy raw footage, or not footage, but audio. It also makes it creepier too.
As my successor would say, it's not the same as it was.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Oh, how I missed that.
God. I just noticed your shirt. I love that.
Yeah. Cast and crew.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
Sometimes people think it says Glock.
As there's a clock in the sea.
Yeah, no, they think
It's a very
they think
different
the hands on the clock make it like a G.
No, I can see that. I can see that.
I think it's just because I'm in the clock mood. Like, I'm excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah, y'all ready to pivot to that?
I am ready.
The clock is ticking.
The clock is indeed ticking.
The clock is ticking, and it's time to talk about Clock, a movie that had one of the best PAs in business working on it.
I don't know about that.
I do.
I think I was a mid PA, but but I was there for sure.
Would you like to, since you're the expert, you were there, would you like to introduce Clock to us?
Clock is a Hulu original film directed by Alexis Jacknow, starring Diana Agron of Glee fame. And it's about a woman who is battling her biological clock, more or less.
She wants to have kids. And I found this concept super interesting because I do feel like, oh no, we're gonna get into some touchy subjects.
No, because like I think me and Blake literally had that conversation too. I was just like, it's such an important, but like not risky, but very like touchy subject for some people.
Because a lot of people can relate to it.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I do feel like women are kind of born into a situation where they're expected to accept motherhood across the board.
I would think I was literally ranting about that like halfway through the movie with Blake, and I was like, we're all like told at a young age like our literally sole purpose is this, but it's like it doesn't have to be, and like that's why this is so important to bring awareness to this, because it's like it's true. Like you'll have your family and friends or even society be like, okay, you don't want kids, what's wrong with you? And it's like nothing has to be wrong with you.
You're kind of guilted into it.
I think like the most important thing about it was like a lot of people don't realize like that's probably like one of the most like selfless things you could do, because like if like you don't think you're fit, you're not selfishly bringing a child in this world if you're not ready.
Or if you just straight up don't want kids. Like, you don't have a reason for it.
Of course. Our main character, Ella, she's successful. She has a happy marriage, and all of her friends have kids, and they're kind of waiting for her to also have kids.
Sabrina's laughing because she has a very happy marriage.
She sure does.
Like one of the best marriages I've ever seen portrayed.
Oh.
And it's just so interesting.
I'm like, are we having the same conversation
We
right now?
are.
Okay.
Yes, we are. It's just so interesting to see someone who is obviously super successful and has like had great accomplishments, and still, the people she interacts with are like, there's something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. Pretty directly.
Yeah, they tell her that her biological clock is broken because she doesn't want to have kids, and basically that eventually her clock will start ticking and she'll want kids, because if you don't want kids, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And I think the movie is not even a little bit subtle with its messaging about this. It's so blatant throughout. I mean, from the opening scene with Ella, it's her eating an egg with caviar on top, which is fish eggs.
I give them a lot of props for that they're not pretentious. Like, you got to go through layers to find out what it's about. I love that they're like, this is what we're showing. That got me on board sooner.
Sometimes it's like, it's okay to just be obvious. Like, you don't have to do like this quirky, creative, like undertones. Like, I don't need that. I don't need that. Just show it to me and be like, okay, cool. So I'm not, because sometimes I'm like, I'll watch something and like, you could tell they're trying to be like, all like quirky and like creative and like with the undertones. I'm like,
Sometimes they do too much, especially with horror. I've noticed they try to allude to what the message is or what the movie's about, but this movie really gets right into it.
They lay it all out in the conversations.
Yeah, that too.
they nailed like the horror aspect of it, and it's just like it's one of those things that you never think like of concepts to use for a horror movie. You're like, okay, yes, you can make this concept scary, but like also like an important message, and it's like I think they nailed that.
It was definitely a psychological thriller, which I love. I love that genre. And for the first, I'd say first half of this movie was full-blown thriller. And I was like, I'm really into this, but I wouldn't call it a horror movie. And then certain things start happening. I'm like, okay, it is a horror movie. And I liked it even more at that point.
Fun fact, the woman smoking a cigarette at the clinic is the director, Alexis Jack now.
Oh,
really?
Okay,
Oh,
that's cool.
That was a good cameo, too.
I think the movie was very personal for her. I think that scene is sort of...
She wrote and directed it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's her basically telling a different version of herself, like, you're going to be okay.
It feels like a very personal story.
It does. Mm-hmm. And I really do get, like, having that kind of frustration that would lead to making this kind of story of, I'm doing all these things with my life. I'm putting all this stuff out there into the world, but you're still kind of, I wouldn't say reducing, but you're still... ignoring that part of myself and that part of me as a human for another aspect. And I feel like it also reduces motherhood.
You're downplaying what accomplishments they're making because they're not procreating, because they're not doing what their whole purpose or whatever. Like, I put that in quotations because that doesn't always have to be. Because, like, the generation we live in now, it's like that doesn't always have to be, the only purpose.
Full on agree. This medical testing thingy, whatever, it's literally called like a mental illness, directly straight to her face. I found that really interesting to see a filmmaker talk about that, because it is something that even teenage girls, who of course most teenage girls are like, I don't like kids, right? Get those talks.
Yeah, Jan from The Office, Melora Hardin in the movie, calls it
the cognitive side of fertility issues.
Basically saying, like, one fertility issue you could have is to not want kids at all. Mm-hmm. Basically pretending that not wanting kids is a mental illness for her to fix.
And I feel like for people that do, I forgot the actual term, but fear of pregnancy, it begins with a T.
T-pregnant phobia.
Sure, T-pregnant phobia. That is body horror to them.
There were actual sequences of body horror.
I won't even lie. I was joking around with Blake, and I was like, okay, maybe I don't. maybe let's not.
They're genuine childbirth nightmares.
Oh boy.
And I've never watched a video of childbirth, but that was a lot, and I was like, oh my god. you don't always like go and watch that for like, on your own unless like, you're really curious. But like sometimes it could be, it's terrifying. Like even people give birth, they're like, yeah, that was literally like terrifying and I hate that. Like someone I literally know, like a family friend who literally just like gave birth, she was talking about it, she's like literally like hated everything about it, creeped me out, was like a horror, like, like a nightmare, but she's like, I'm so glad it's over. But like she also wants to do it again. So it's like, okay, that's the beauty of life.
I found the story overall really tragic from this character's perspective of someone that like wants to feel accepted or wants to feel right. They still feel like something's wrong with them because they don't fit into a certain box. She doesn't. And to go through this insane medical procedure and then having to then deal with completely destroying her life when she's trying to build it. It really was a psychological thriller. As Blake was saying, going into horrors, it kind of shifts through the story.
Because like she also did it just to get she didn't do it for the right reason. She did it mostly for like her husband and to get her like family and friends off her back. And like that's sad because like you should only do it for you. Like if you, because it's like you want, like you hate the concept of not wanting kids and not to trick yourself into, because the experiment's supposed to be like, oh, you don't want kids so much that it makes you want kids. And it's like, that's fake because it's like, it's either it just hits you one day or it doesn't. And like, you don't have to do all that and ruin your body and your life for other people. Because it's like, why should everyone else in your life get that say?
It affects everyone across the board because the language they use in this movie also reduces women that are mothers, right? Like, it reduces them to nothing but being a mom and takes away their own achievements and their own careers and the things they do outside of that. And it's not a part of them. It's just who they are, as if they can't be anything, not anything more, but, like, it's just strictly one thing. I will say, on the other side of the coin of this movie, good Lord, that would be a terrifying thing to go through. She almost smashed her best friend's pregnant tummy. She's like, hey, everyone just stay still. I feel like if I saw a tarantula on my best friend's pregnant stomach, I wouldn't be like, hey guys, just everyone stay still. But oh my God, there's a giant spider over there. You might want to like flick it off or something. But hallucinations, she was kind of going crazy. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really intense.
Oh my God, that scared me. So I was like, please don't go there. I was like, please, like that would take me out. I'd be like, please, I need them to not go that far.
Clock trivia: the tarantula was real, but the tummy was not real.
So the actress wore something, and then they put the tarantula on that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm gonna vomit. No.
Dang, that was huge too. I actually didn't think that was real. Wow.
I hate it.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, this is for sure a dream because that spider is ginormous. Wow.
Can we talk spoilers? Officially spoilers. I wanted to make a note on when the implant was finally removed. Ow. Oh my God. But how she was able to see color again. And it took me, it hit me.
That scene.
Yeah, it hit me differently because genuinely one of the symptoms of depression is like colors are dulled to you.
If you notice, they do that in commercials for depression medication. It's always gray, and then they take it and everything gets all colorful. I wonder if that was on purpose or not, because those commercials just always stick out. Because after that scene, you realize you're like, oh yeah, a good portion of this movie was gray. It was getting really
but you don't notice it until that scene. You're
dim.
like, oh God, like.
And they had great foreshadowing because she couldn't see the color swatches in the paint store. She couldn't see blue. And I feel like, if I really want to reach or dig deep, it not only just the depression bit, but also probably dulling a part of the person that she's just born as. Mm-hmm. In order to fit a mold that she feels like she has to.
That scene, the whole movie, I was really enjoying. I was with it, but when that happened, I was just like, "Oh, that was brilliant." I loved that scene. I like horror movies that can also have an uplifting scene that you can almost kind of call beautiful in a way. So it was really cool. An uplifting moment for her in an otherwise pretty dreadful situation.
She got a few moments. She got a few moments.
She got some moments.
I called that the clock was her dad. Like, when it happened, I was like,
oh, yeah.
No, that's her dad, because he was, like, yelling.
It was the shot where she's swinging down and you hear him in the background screaming. The second it cut away, I went to Sabrina, I was like, that was him. That was for sure him. They cut away, I was like, oh. Because she was pulling out the gears and the wood parts, and I was like, how much you want to bet that was his intestines? Sure enough, there was a shot where she did that.
Hot take. It's a hot take because I do like a darker ending in my movies. I do a darker ending in horror movies, but I feel like for this message and what this story was saying, I really would have preferred if it actually was the grandfather clock, because a part of the story was her like having to face the idea of like ending her lineage and like facing like ending the thing with her ancestors and all of that. So the grandfather clock would like represent two things in that situation.
I guess that was like the full sole purpose of the fish, though.
Yeah, how did you guys interpret that fish?
So the fish was definitely a callback to what her dad was saying about all their Jewish ancestors. There was actually a different ending shot, so I was very surprised to see how the movie ended, because they shot a whole sequence with like 30 or 40 extras that were her Jewish ancestors throughout the ages, like back to the 40s, 50s, and then back to biblical times. They had Jewish people represented from like centuries and centuries of history, and basically she wakes up on the rock and she looks across and they are all on a mountain screaming at her, but silently. And so it's just showing all their faces, and
Oh my god.
they're all opening their mouths and their eyes really wide, just screaming silently.
That's such a good ending, but I still feel like I maybe it's just the optimism in me, but I feel like it really goes against the overall message. I hate saying that because obviously it's personal to director. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna like step on like, oh, this is how you should say it. No. But I do feel like I would have liked if her ancestors would have been like, you know, hey, we went through this to let you have the choice to do whatever you want. Then that she was able to find acceptance in that, but it wasn't that kind of movie.
Yeah, no, I think she just feels the horror of
Right.
all the pressure from all of her family and all of her lineage to keep it going. But her idea is to end her own bloodline, which I thought was sort of weird. She's having this conversation at one point where they're talking about the Holocaust, but they're kind of tiptoeing around the word Holocaust. I don't think they actually say it. And basically, she says something like, it would be better to just end your own bloodline than to risk going through that again. That's sort of the conclusion I drew. She didn't explicitly say that, but that was sort of implied in what she was saying.
Right.
And I think there was sort of like an anti-natalist message that was like basically said to the camera.
And you struggle with the concept of bringing a child into a world like that.
Anyone who doesn't isn't paying attention.
That was a whole thing. It was just like, it's not worth it. And I do feel like that changes the conversation between personal choice and personal fulfillment and what would be best for you and what you put out in the world, right? Mm-hmm. What fits you best. Because you can benefit, or if you want to benefit the people, the world around you in different ways, add to it different ways, have a legacy in different ways.
That's the thing, is I don't think the message was that you should be able to just make the choice for yourself. I think she was a little blatantly saying you shouldn't reproduce. And that I don't necessarily agree with. I think it should have been a little bit more of women should be able to make their own choice.
Right.
But I think basically at one point Diana turns to the camera and says, if you want to bring up a child in this world, then you're not listening. And I just thought that was a little too on the nose, a little lacking nuance.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about that, because whenever I think about this whole conversation, I really think about, like, you know, the pressure and the idea that if you don't do certain things, you're broken, you know. But that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. I feel like there is a lot of nuance to the whole conversation that might have benefited some of the movie a little bit. I still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I still had a lot of tension. I really, really sympathized with the character and what she was going through and what she was dealing with. Her support network was kind of turning against her because she didn't fit into this particular box. Ha 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 ha.
That guy was so close to being the perfect movie husband. So close.
I did not read all of the script when we were in production, so that plot twist with him actually caught me by surprise. That was very fun for me.
I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah.
I thought actually she was hallucinating that logo being on his bag. and he was going to turn against her because of that. But it was there when she showed the screen, showed it to him, and I was like, oh, what?
But overall, I really do think it was it's like solid half thriller, half horror. I think it used a great subject matter to turn, like, you know how I always say that everyone's scared of something, and that's why I love horror movies so much, because you can do so much with it. I think this was a great subject matter to really emphasize that, and I think it was really creative.
It's unique because, like Sabrina said, nobody really touches on it. It's kind of that taboo subject. So to really not hide at all your intentions when it comes to this movie and just be like, this is what I'm trying to say, this is how I feel about it, I liked it. My last thing is I really did love that final scene. I would like to see the one they shot that you were talking about, Cam. Was that, do you know if it was executed kind of in a scary way with them all yelling at her?
I think so. I think it was definitely very creepy, very disturbing.
See, I would love that at a different point in the movie, but as the final scene, I just loved the silence. Like, you just kind of hear the waves hitting and then like something kind of squishy, and she just sees that fish with the limbs crawling up towards her and just abruptly cuts right there. I thought that was a great way to end it. Again, on the nose, because it's a callback to what we already heard, but I like that that's where they chose to kind of end her story. And obviously she died. That was the whole point, that she didn't have any blood on her. She was just peacefully laying right there, which is kind of up to interpretation, which I also like. I like ambiguous endings, but I thought that was a good spot to leave it.
One final bit of trivia. There was one more shot done for the ending that didn't make it. Basically, after she jumps off the cliff, there's supposed to be a huge wide shot from the other side where you see her jumping off the cliff, and they actually used a life-size sex doll as a body double for her, and they threw it off the cliff, but the shot, it didn't turn out well. It was kind of unusable.
Good attempt, though. That would have been something.
One of my buddies on set was hacking off the breasts of the sex doll, and I actually have a chunk of the rubber in my car.
It's true, I've seen it.
That's funny.
As a little memento of the movie. That's the most Norman Bates thing I've ever said, but
So far.
so far.
There's still time.
Well, if you're enjoying The Last Scare, please leave a like on the video and subscribe and tell your friends and share around what we do. It would certainly help us out a lot.
And you should stick around, because just like Stu, we'll be right back.
I'll be right back.